So, for anybody new here, as Sally said, I'm Nic. I'm a life coach and wellness educator, and I like to fuse a lot of different styles together. I like the scientific side from a neuroscience kind of perspective, a psychological side on human behavior and why we do what we do, and also the more kind of mindfulness side in yoga, breathwork, meditation, and all of that. So, hopefully, what you see will be a fusion of all of that. So let's have a quick look at our session today and what we're going to cover. Oh, and before I forget, if you have a little notebook handy, that might be useful because I'm going to ask you some questions and take some notes as we go along. So what we're going to talk about today is where you're at right now, your beautiful mind, which is going to be a really interesting, exciting part of today for you to dive a little bit further into. The power of perception, which is always a brilliant thing to talk about. It's really interesting. A little bit on motivation and drive, and a little bit on your identity and success. And then, as always, some practical strategies to put all of this in place. And I can see, Mike, don't worry, you're more than welcome here. It was designed with ladies in mind, but we welcome you. There's another, I seen a Graham pop in, so you're not alone, so don't worry. So, as always, I like to start with a question. So today's question is, what does success mean to you? What does success mean to you? So I put little part one and part two here because I wanted to ask you to split this up a little bit. And the first part being, if you were to describe success, what would that mean to you? So write this down for yourself because sometimes I think we don't do this enough. What exactly am I striving towards? So how would you describe success to you? Don't worry, Michaela, you are all good. And the reason I'm asking you to write this down and sometimes put the date on the notes that you're writing because you'll find them randomly in a drawer in a few months' time and you'll say, oh, yeah, that's what success meant to me then. But it might change and morph and develop into something else. Yeah, feel free. A couple of you have shared in the chat. You're more than welcome to do that, of course, if you would like to. So that's a nice example, Sharon. Feeling fulfilled by my work and maintaining a healthier work-life balance. Anna, to do what I like and do it well. Yeah. To enjoy the job that I do and make a decent living from it. Yeah. Peace, contentment, happiness from what I'm doing. And achievement. Yeah. To be financially independent and able to do what I want to without too much worry. And everybody will have a different, obviously, version of success, and that's absolutely fine. But I think it's important to come back and think about this, maybe even once a month, as is that vision that you have still the same? So part two of this is, how would success feel in your body? Do you think, how would success feel in your body? Yeah, in charge of my own time, financial independence. Yeah, the financially independence coming up a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Getting something off the ground, Lindsay. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, it's hard to be a teacher. I have a lot of teacher clients, Lindsay. I know the challenge. Um, so how would it feel in your body? So Holly, that's a lovely one. Relaxation and lightness. Less stress, more energy. That's interesting, Sharon. Yeah. Peace, energized by my work. Yeah. Mike, calm and at peace. Relaxed and strong. That's a good combo, Julie. Lighter. Yeah, there's a lot of lightness and kind of less stressed, letting things go. I think the society that we're in we've almost got ourselves to a stage where we're running so fast that we're tripping ourselves up and forgetting that there is lightness to be had in a model of success, whatever that, looks like for you. Less tired, yeah, less stressed. Yeah. Inspiring to others. Yeah, lovely. And again, just keep these notes together and we'll reference back to them as we go through. So let's move on to the next part. I want you to think about where you're at right now, because obviously we're at the end of this series. I want to just remind you of a few things. So let's take a pause. Think about where you're at right now in life, in work, in everything that's going on for you at this time. So reflect on how much you already know, because it's likely that you know quite a lot and you don't give yourself credit for that. You know a lot more than you think you do. So again, just taking a little bit of time to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm pretty knowledgeable in my field, or I'm learning in my field, or I've just started out. That's still something. So just give yourself a little time and space to think about, what do I know for sure? Second thing I want you to think about is, what do you need to do next? What do you think you need to do next? Because the reason I'm asking you this is because it's very likely that you know exactly what you need to do next. I can see it in some of your faces. It's likely that you know what to do next. So write that thing down, whatever that is, whatever comes to mind. Sorry if I sound raspy. I've been talking all morning. So whatever comes to mind. Hmm. Don't worry, Maureen. Hopefully you can catch anything you missed on the recording as well. Now, the next thing I want you to consider is, are you holding yourself back? Now, the answer here might be yes, might be no. No judgment either way. But I want you just to be clear with yourself. Are you holding yourself back? And if you kind of challenge yourself to go for the yes or no, and imagine there's nothing in between, even if it's a little tiny bit of, yes, I might be holding myself back, then that's okay. Just know that first. Yeah, Lindsay, I hear that. Basically, yeah, when there's this idea of circumstances aren't perfect, it's a reason not to get started. But I think, everybody will know, because again, you're always wiser than you think. The circumstances will never be perfect. It's about, what can I do in this set of circumstances to move forward. So, and the whole reason why I want you to think about this is because your behavior is driven by your subconscious mind. So you need to work with the mind as a partnership in order to make that long-term change. I'm sure you'll all understand, you can make change for a day, a week, but after a while it tends to fizzle out because you haven't worked in partnership with the mind to help you overcome that long term. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is behavior change over the long term. Now, when we're talking about the brain and the mind, I was reading a bit about this last night and I wasn't planning on going into this too much, but I thought it was quite interesting, so I want to tell you. So when you think about your brain, obviously is your physical brain in your body, but your mind is something that happens when your brain and your body meet and magic happens in the middle. And I thought, oh, I've never heard it that way before. I thought that was really lovely. So your mind is not your brain nor your body. It's that space in between where all the good stuff happens, like creativity and ideas and when you're feeling really excited and motivated, that all comes from the mind, which I just thought was lovely. So I want you to think about it like your brain and your mind has the potential to be your best friend. It also has the potential to be your biggest adversary. Enemy is a strong word, so I like adversary because it's like a challenge. So you need to get to know it. You have to learn how to cooperate with it, and you have to work in partnership with it in order to make the most of your potential. All of you probably have an idea that you're more capable than you think, or there's potential within you that is untapped. Like Lindsay had said, what would I be if I wasn't holding myself back? I'd be able to get the business off the ground. I would be able to take that step forward. I would be able to work through the overwhelm, whatever that is. So if you make your relationship with your mind a really good, solid, understanding one, you're more likely to achieve what you want. You're more likely to achieve your outcome and, whatever that is. And that's why I'm kind of asking about what does your version of success look like? Because that could be having a flexible lifestyle. That could be being financially independent. That could be, successfully maintaining two jobs. That might be completely branching out on your own. Your idea of success is okay just to be yours. Don't try to be someone else's version of success. So, and that's the case for, business, for life, for all of it. I want you to feel like you can take your control back with deliberate, conscious action. So let's get started with some more information on this beautiful mind. So I think I've put 8 points. There's lots more than this, but I wanted to pick some that I think would be relevant for you. So yeah, it's only a portion of the information that I could share, but above all else, your mind is your greatest asset. It's your superpower. And the reason that I want to focus on this next and for this topic in general is so that you feel like you know it in a little bit more detail. Because when you understand how it works, you take a little bit of control back and then you can choose different action. And that is you working towards that success, that vision of what you want for your future for the long term. So let's dive a little bit into this information education on the mind, all 128 billion neurons of it. So there's a lot of stuff happening in there. So the first thing I always talk about in relation to the mind is it's safety first. Safety first, that's all really your mind is focused on 24/7, if you like. It wants to keep you safe biologically. So it's designed to keep you safe above everything else. It doesn't care if you're happy, it cares if you are safe. And that's important. So, what does safety mean to you? So, obviously, we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, and this is your primary biological instinct. So, if you translate that into your everyday life, safety might be not sending that email because you don't know what the answer is. Safety might not be reaching out for a collaboration because what if they say no? So I'll stay at my safe place. Safety might mean just keeping yourself smaller, choosing not to go into another country or open another shop or hire a new person or whatever that might be, or even putting yourself out there on social media because that feels scary. So the safety thing is really crucial. And when you can identify this, you can start to ask yourself questions like, am I doing this by choice or is safety ruling my behavior? A lot of the time, you'll know in hindsight, you can't really catch it in the moment a lot of the time, but you will know in retrospect. So if you think about a time that your mind kept you safe against the vision of your own success, because if you keep yourself small, obviously you'll never be able to expand to achieve your potential. And that's important. You might be able to expand a little bit because you're kind of forcing yourself against the grain, but it doesn't feel natural, it doesn't feel good. But what could you achieve if you started to work with this idea of safety? And sometimes it's as simple as, I can recognize that I would normally say no to an opportunity like that because I'm trying to keep myself in that safe space, I'm going to say yes and challenge myself. I do this quite often, sometimes to my own regret. I'll get offered things or, to do something quite scary, and I'll just say, oh, my safety says no, but I'm going to say yes. And it's fine. It's okay to be scared, but do you want to hold yourself back? So just keep that in your mind. So your brain is also a prediction machine. Now there's lots of really, really fascinating science on this. So I was reading a wee bit last night because I was doing a bit more prep. So look, this is the book. It's in the reading list, but that's a really great one. And I can only give you a little snippet here, but she goes into so much more detail in the book. So basically your brain is designed to predict what's going to happen before you're consciously aware of it. So your brain is wired to kind of initiate action before you're consciously aware. So it's kind of simulating best case scenario based on all of your past experiences, but also the current situation that you're in. So think about it like a combination of your memory as a hard drive plus the environment that you're in equals XYZ. So sometimes you won't understand why you've done what you've done until afterwards. So the really cool part about this is before you even are aware of what's happening, a lot of the time you've already taken the action. Whether that's to not reply or, keeping yourself small in whatever way that's relevant to you. It's only looking back, like look back over the last month or 6 months and think about things that you've done that have kept yourself small or contained. Does that make sense? Carrie, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable is a concept that Brené Brown, yes, absolutely. And she's absolutely right. She's another great author. Thanks for throwing that in. And she talks about this idea of like leaning in to whatever you're feeling and knowing that that's okay, but you can still choose another outcome anyway. In my past life, in my corporate life, before I had jumped into any of this world, that's something I actually used to say, Carrie, quite a lot because I had to go into uncomfortable spaces quite a lot. And I used to say, I just have to be okay here. And I just have to be able to deal with it uncomfortable. And now again, it makes so much more sense. It's just that that had a negative impact over a long period of time. I wasn't consciously choosing it. But it's really interesting when you start to apply this to your own personal situation, you will start to retrain yourself how to act so that that past experience bubble will predict something different for you in the future. So, next point on the mind is it's designed to learn. And this is something that comes up quite a lot because your brain's like a sponge. It's designed to absorb information throughout your whole life and it craves information, it craves growth, and is basically a machine to help you create ideas. So, are you feeding it correctly? And are you letting that creativity flow freely? Or are you, again, kind of halting your own development? And, I have clients, my oldest client was 88, and she was like this kind of dynamo of creativity and energy. And I was looking at her thinking, this doesn't end ever. If you just keep feeding your brain with what it needs, you will be rewarded with your own sense of personal satisfaction because you're creating something that's relevant for you. And I think it helps to understand that you need this, you need the creativity, you need to let your brain kind of go into mind wandering mode. In offices, sometimes you'll have heard it called brainstorming. It's actually a really good thing to just let your brain wander and see what kind of ideas come up, because in that space, there might be a little kind of glimmer of something really exciting for you. So let that happen. Now, the efficiency bias is something also good to know because your brain wants to make you as efficient as possible. So it's like energy conservation. So your brain is like 2% of your body weight, but uses 20% of your energy. So it's quite an energy drain, but it wants to make the processes as smooth as possible. So when you wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you have a shower, you've probably made your cup of tea or coffee all without a lot of thought because your brain is automatically taken you through that kind of process that you've done hundreds of times before. But then you think, okay, if my brain is trying to automate everything, what is it automating that's not helpful? Now, remember that your brain doesn't care if you're happy or successful. It cares that things are familiar, you're feeling safe, you're in your little comfort zone. So try to think about it like, is there any patterns of behavior that are becoming kind of routine that I need to break free from, knowing that it's coming from this kind of efficiency bias place? So there's also something, I've called it here gardening. The official term is tuning and pruning. So you might have heard of the brain cells are essentially called neurons, and you've got billions of them. So basically, think about it like it's like a tree. So the little branches of the tree are called dendrites, and there's a little gap called a synapse, and they talk to each other. So like tree to tree, that's how it works. If one tree doesn't talk to another tree, the branches will just fizzle and fade. So that's the kind of tuning and pruning idea of if you have an action or a thought or a way of thinking or something like that, the little buds that they're called literally kind of die off within a couple of days. So you have to really think about this as a way to keep yourself consistent with the thoughts that are going to move you towards your version of success. So it's like a garden, you have to tune and prune it. You cut off the things that are not helpful, like unhelpful thoughts, beliefs about yourself. Don't spend so much time focusing on them. Focus on what you want to grow and connect. Now, the next thing is your brain is this incredible changing network. So I want you to think about it like just a live kind of in motion organ that's talking all the time, 24/7, even when you're asleep. And each of these little kind of dendrites are passing, hundreds of thousands of trillions of connections. When you put them all together all the time, there's so much activity all the time. And you might sit on your lunch break sometimes and go, I'm so exhausted, there's no thoughts, or your brain might be, on fire. But even when you're not aware of things, there's connections and really incredible things happening all of the time. I think that's helpful because if you think about it like I can mold these connections because it's a moving, living organism that is trying to help me or hinder me depending on what energy you put into it. So, it's a communication system like a network. If you think about all of the phone lines in the UK, it's a big network, so complicated, or all of the airports in the sky, but it's a network of communication that you have power to control what is happening in there to a certain degree. So think about it like, I guess you're trying to become the controller of this really complex, but really, really incredible network. There's nothing else in the universe that connects and communicates the way that our mind does. There's nothing that they have found that's big enough, vast enough, complex enough to even start to explain it. And I think it's incredible that scientists don't really know a lot of how it works. Like, how cool is that? We haven't even worked out the magic of our own minds yet. But you know that you have this superpower and you can use it to your advantage when you kind of know a lot of its core ingredients, if you like. So the RAS, and I put it here because I didn't want to put too many words in altogether, but the delete, distort, and generalize. So the RAS basically, it's the reticular activating system, and this is think about it like a network of neurons, and it's located in the brain stem, right at the base of your brain, that acts like a filter between your conscious mind and the external world. So its main job is to decide what information gets your attention and what gets ignored. So if you think about it like you're getting information in all of the time, millions and millions of bits of information every second, the RAS helps you to focus on what's relevant. So you're obviously choosing to be here right now. That's great. You're focused on the call. But if you were to focus outside the call, you can probably hear sounds that are going on. And that's the RAS at work. And kind of helping you to filter on what you believe is important based on what you're thinking, what you're believing, what you're expecting to happen, how your emotional energy is that day. So it's highly changeable and highly programmable, meaning that you can train what you focus on consistently. So, what's an example of this? Have you ever bought like a certain type of car and then you see that car everywhere because your focus has changed? So that's the kind of RAS at work. Now, in a work sense, if you think about, oh, I'm not good enough to make this happen, your RAS will filter in evidence to support that belief. So, what are you telling yourself? And then is your RAS trying to back it up, basically? And that's important because then you have to think about, oh, I maybe have to set a new intention. So the intention might be, I haven't found the balance yet, but I'm working on finding an improved balance. Lindsay, I think that was for you based on the previous chat. But I'm finding new opportunities for growth. If you tell yourself that, the RAS will spot those too. The beautiful thing about it is it doesn't it doesn't prioritize positive or negative. It's neutral. So you can help the RAS to kind of spot chances or opportunities or connections or possibilities that you might miss. This is kind of why it's a bit of a background information to things like that you might have heard of, like vision boards or affirmations, goal setting, visualization, all of that is because it's trying to focus your mind in a certain way. So it's priming the RAS when you think about like a brain point of view to focus on things that are in alignment with where you're going. So there's another book that I've recommended called The Source, if anyone's familiar with that, and it's Dr. Tara Swart, I think. And she discusses the RAS in scientific terms in align with manifesting because it's a similar kind of thing. You focus on what you want, and suddenly your brain starts to notice opportunities that it may not have noticed before. So it's not all kind of like hocus pocus, it's more of a scientific, you're training your brain to look for things in a certain way. So you're training your filter basically. So the DDG on here is you will delete, distort, and generalize information all of the time, 24/7. So you delete information that you don't feel is relevant. You distort information to fit your own belief system and kind of generalize to say, well, maybe that is true based on my belief system. And all of you will be very different because remember, your past experience, blueprint, or bubble is very different. So even from this call today, for example, you will all go away with very different things based on your blueprint of what you have deemed to be not important to you right now, or, distorted to fit your idea of what you need right now. And again, this isn't positive or negative. This is just the way that your brain works. If you were to take in all of the information that is coming at you 24/7, it wouldn't be able to process. It's too much. It's too big. So just know that your brain does that. So have you ever had a conversation with someone about maybe something that's happened and you're like, I don't remember that at all. And they have a completely different version that you have no idea of. And you're like, that can't be true. I was there. But you've distorted, generalized, and deleted, and so have they. So there's two separate experiences coming from the one truth. So then you get into all the whole, like, what is the truth? Who knows? It's all about perception. Michelle, that was the source. It's going to be in the reading list as well at the end. So, and this is probably the biggest thing about the brain is it's adaptable and flexible. So neurons can do more than one thing. There's a whole other, if you really want to delve into the science of it, there's a great book, again in the reading list, called Live Wired, which is all about how your neurons, your little brain cells, are like a team of employees. So they switch between tasks. So, for example, maybe someone whose visual sight isn't 100%, all those little brain cells get basically seconded to work somewhere else. So that's why their hearing might be better, or they'll be musically gifted, or something else will be different because the neurons have been taken to work somewhere else. So there's no part of your brain really that doesn't have a function and can't be adapted and changed and maneuvered. And I think that's really important because then you have to think, well, if my brain is dynamic and moving and living and, changing in this way every day, how can I support it? Now, there's the theory of this idea of complexity. It's so complex that nobody can really understand exactly how it works, but the brain can process huge amounts of data and generate brand new patterns that you're not familiar with yet. And that's important because that's where space, opportunity, hope, development, all of this comes into play. Um, Inside Out, yes, that's um, such a good film, and there's the two now as well. But the first one was better, I think. So, what I want you to really remember is your brain is evolved to create an approximation, not to see the world exactly as it is. So this is from a scientist called Lisa Feldman Barrett. I'm like a super fan. She's really incredible. Her work is amazing. And she's very pragmatic and does a lot of work on bringing the scientific side to life and making it relevant to the world that you live in. So if your brain is it's trying to make sense of what it thinks your life is, not exactly what it is in real life, if that makes sense. So I want you to think about the role that your mind plays in telling you about yourself. Do you remember a few sessions ago I asked everybody, what do you think about yourself? And it was a bit like, oh, some people got quite emotional, some people didn't want to say, some people had no idea. Because what you believe about yourself, your mind is backing all of that up and generating lots of new patterns to support that. But what if there's a completely different way that you have never seen before? And this is relevant for everything, relationships, your relationship that you have with yourself, your business, your life, everything. So, this kind of idea when you're talking about the mind is remembering that, this is the product of millions of years of evolution and everything that you personally have experienced up until this point in your life. And I think it's important to understand as well, your brain has not yet evolved to match the world that you live in. So we have to understand how it's evolved based on everything we've happened in the past. I think I read recently somewhere that for humankind in the form that we're in now, we've lived 99.9% as hunter-gatherers. Our brain is still kind of programmed for that. Our brain's not programmed to deal with the vast amount of information that we have in our modern world. We haven't evolved that quickly yet. So it's your job to kind of understand how the mind works, which is largely fear-based, threat detection, energy conservation, social belonging, because we want to be with other people, but then there's everything that comes with that and dealing with relationships. But all of this explains why you have imposter syndrome, why you are so fear-based, why you are critical of yourself, why you have overwhelm. The brain isn't failing you, it's just doing its ancient job in a very modern setting. And it's like, oh, okay, what if I can help it out a little bit? What if I can help it, see things a little bit differently? So from here, try to think about it like I'm just going to be a little bit more curious about how my brain is working. And if you have to realize things in hindsight to get you started, which is always the easiest way, and what I did myself was, oh, I wonder why I decided that. Oh, I see. I was coming from a safety perspective. Then you kind of invite flexibility in over time because you're changing those little connections in the neurons by having a new thought. What if I had said yes to that opportunity? What would have happened? The next time you get an opportunity, there's a new pattern, and you might think, oh, I'm not going to say no so quickly. I'm adapting, I'm growing, I'm becoming something new. And you're encouraging yourself to step into that uncomfortable space. So I really want to highlight in this kind of sense that progress beats perfectionism, especially in entrepreneurship. You can create new patterns, new ways of thinking, new stories, new beliefs, new outcomes. And this is the magic of knowing this stuff and the magic of being able to work with your own mind to create it. So you'll see things differently. A good way of describing this, and what I have said to a few people in the past, is it's kind of like you see th things in 3D rather than in black and white. You see things in a different kind of way, and you're more understanding and less critical because you know why you've done that, even if you don't agree with it. Regina, how does intuition fit into this? Ooh, good question. Intuition's that's a whole other topic and something that's really, really interesting in general. But it fits into this because your intuition, if you think about again, all of your past experience, your intuition can see that in a way that you consciously can't. So if you think about, if you want to imagine it like a big bubble of everything that you've ever seen, known, experienced, heard, all of the information coming in that you haven't been able to logically process lives in your intuition, if you like. So sometimes a gut instinct comes from information that you can't access logically, but you kind of know it to be true. So if you give your intuition a little bit more weight, then it's almost like bringing a part of yourself to the table that you haven't really believed because people say, but yeah, I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure, and logically it didn't make sense. But your intuition is really wise. It's just that you can't understand exactly how, because none of us can. We're these incredible machines that we haven't quite worked out yet. So I want to have a little bit of fun with something. So this is going to be a little experiment that we can all take part in together. So, what do you see? So, if I ask you to look at image one first, what do you see? Now, let's have a little bit of fun with this and put it in the chat. Now, while you're looking at that number one image, I want you to think about this. Billions of neurons are trying to give these little lines and squiggles meaning. Your brain is now currently, as we speak, searching for a way to make sense of this, searching through all of your past experiences, that big bubble of information, looking for something that you've seen that's similar to that. So let me see. Oh my God, you're so fast. A tap, a tap, 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 tap. Fridge, a tap on a hill. Handle on a fridge, or a nose and a mouth. Oh God, there's nose and mouth. Oh, funny. I didn't see that at all. So as you can see, lots of different information, but I think it's really interesting. Each one of you will come up with something different based on something that's familiar that you've seen before. So you're searching and trying to figure this out. So here's what the author described number one as: a submarine going over a waterfall. Isn't it funny? When you see it, then you see it, you're like, oh yeah. But until you get to that point, you're like, oh my God, I would never have seen that. No. What if you're seeing yourself in a position now that you 100% believe in, but that's not the case at all? Oh, it's like, boom, what if I could see it completely differently? I love all the smiley faces, but what if my mind's just not letting me because it only knows what it knows? It doesn't know anything more than all of your past experiences until you let it. But I love this game, it's really funny. So let's do the second one. So what do you see? What do you see in this little second image? A spiky flower head, dandelion, a flower, a wind turbine, half a windmill, a chimney sweep brush. Interesting. Water sprinkler, sun rising. Again, you can see like there's so many different ideas. And again, if you've seen something recently, or the first thing that kind of comes to your mind, scientific equipment. So there'll be something in your past experiences that dictates your answer. So I love what the author said this one is. Are you ready? He said it's a spider doing a handstand. How funny is this? And you're like, oh, again, once you see it, you're like, oh, I get it. It's a spider doing a handstand. So again, I can see some people going, is it really? But yeah, it's so funny. And this book, I put the source here by Roger Price. It's all about perception and what you're seeing, and is that true? So number three, let's keep going. What does number three look like? Volcano, chimney. volcano chimney, top of a ski jump, volcano, nuclear power plant, a sneeze. Oh, interesting. A Turkish tent exploding. Oh my God, you guys have great imaginations. All I see is a bunny looking at something. And then you can try to see what someone else is seeing, and it's really interesting because you're like, I can't see a bunny. Wedding confetti. Okay, so this one is a ski jump and spectators, but as seen by the jumper. So you're on top of the cliff. I think a couple of people got it. You're on top of the ski jump and you're about to go and you see all the little people in the distance. It's cool, isn't it? And once you see it, you're like, oh yeah. So it's just brilliant because it's the perfect way to highlight to you that your perception might not be true. So what if what you see is only a result of all of your past experiences, but what if there's another brand new picture ready for you to see? Because these lines look different to you than they did, 10, 15 minutes ago, but nothing has changed. Only your perception has changed. So challenging your thoughts, your beliefs, and just knowing that what you might see now is not your current reality is just really, really fascinating. And thinking back to that, what we talked about on your brain's kind of constructing your reality and taking actions all of the time without your conscious thought, is your brain is making its best guess scenario of what it thinks is going on every minute of every day. And this is predicting what happens before it even happens, because that's how you've been designed. So before a conversation happens, you're kind of in prediction mode. I wonder what will happen if he says this, I can do this. And this all then forms your experience, which is why experience is so subjective. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight. So moving on from that, how does this translate into our lives? What does this mean for all of us? And this is the science of change. So here are some important points that I thought would be good for you. First one is your brain is live wired, not hardwired. It is constantly reshaping itself based on what you think, what you feel. And remember, this is kind of flexible superpower forever. It's going to thrive on whatever you feed it. So back to that, there's so much more on this in that book, Live Wired, by I think it's David Eagleman. Feed it well, knowing that you're creating something. Feed your brain well. What are you feeding it with? So number two, change starts with prediction. Your brain doesn't wait to react. It predicts on what's coming, based on all of the past experiences, all of the sensory information coming in, trying to make the best decision. And just know that you won't always get it right. But the adaptations and how your brain learns, that's what we call learning. When it takes it in, it infiltrates that information into your past experiences, and then you act differently in the future. So your experiences today are shaping your next decisions. It's kind of like, oh, you kind of take it a wee bit more seriously then. So number three is small repeated actions build new neural pathways. So consistency matters more than intensity. Very small, consistent actions are important. And again, this is, the science behind things like affirmation and visualization and, even things like meditation and mindfulness, because that consistently feeding yourself something that is going to help you shape a future decision are building your base, your home base for the future. It's designing your future with every single action that you take. Even if it feels silly, even if you think I'm not getting this, you're feeding it with all of the good stuff to make a future decision. Bold sometimes feels uncomfortable because your brain will see that as a threat to your energy conservation and balance. And remember that discomfort has to be present for your growth process. So just notice when you're uncomfortable. Notice when somebody asks you something and you're like, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe this is not the right time. Maybe I'll come back to you. Let me think about it. You're pushing boundaries and expanding when you feel that way. So try and lean into that a little bit more and know that as you do that, you're creating these connections between the neurons that means you're creating new pathways in the brain for future decisions. You're not stuck with the brain you have. Even, we're all in different situations right now, but you're not stuck there. So your thoughts, your habits, your environment literally are sculpting your brain over time. So how do you want to design it? Like, how cool is that? How do you want to design it? And what would you like your brain, your mind, your body to be? So all of the things that you said in your vision of success, like bring them back and then think about, okay, how can I use this information to sculpt something different? For me in this one, sometimes I think about, people that I admire. What is it I admire about them? And know that you can take actions to change in that direction. It just doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but if you take the action, again, you're building a foundation for the future. The action is really hard once, then a little bit hard, a little bit hard, a little bit hard. It might be hard for a while, but eventually that's going to become normal for you. And number 6 here is emotion fuels behavior. So changing how you feel about something can make it easier to act differently, but it does take practice. So starting to tell yourself a new story about how you can change, how you can act in that same situation over time really helps. So an example of this I had recently was a lady who was in a job for like 20 years, really incredible at her job, but every time she had to lead a team meeting, she would get sweats and be really anxious and lose her train of thought and just not be able to act her best in that position until she started to think about that position differently, anchor a few new beliefs, put in a few little actions that she could put in her phone to remind herself 5 minutes before the session, a little bit of breath work, some little tools that she could hack into. And suddenly it's still not easy, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it was. And over time, that will get better because she's changing how her brain acts in that situation. So I'm conscious of time, so let me jump on to practical strategies. So how can we get started? What's some of the things that you can do? So the first thing is implementation intentions. So plan your response in advance. So that can be something like the next time I feel overwhelmed, I'm going to pause, breathe, and break this down and take some notes on my phone or really try and understand where I'm at. And now you can add in this layer of what's going on with my brain when I'm overwhelmed, what's happening here. Number 2 is the mental rehearsal visualization. So this is really brain priming. So again, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagined and real. So that's how visualization works. When you visualize it, when it happens in real life, perhaps your brain's already ready because it's experienced it already in your imagination. So you don't want to just imagine the outcome, imagine the process of getting there. And when you link that together and you go into as much detail as you can, that really helps you just become more comfortable over time with the things that might be holding you back. So number 3 is a self-coaching model. Catch it, name it, reframe it. So this is my old fear of failure showing up. For example, this is my old pattern of saying no when I know I'm ready. This is my old fear or subconscious belief that I'm not enough to put myself on social media. Catch it, name it, reframe it. And suddenly you can say, next time, again, I'm going to choose something different. So from a kind of motivation perspective, and we'll come back to that maybe on another call at some point in the future. But dopamine boosters, there's so much work being done on this as well recently. Think about it like use nourishing rewards to reinforce your progress. So things like movement that you enjoy, don't punish yourself. Music, again, that you enjoy. Anything outside nature related, anything that makes you feel like you've got genuine connection. So, someone that you meet perhaps that you can have a really good conversation with that allows you to feel like you're getting something from it, like you're getting an energy boost. Dopamine works best when it's a natural boost, not when you get, the main form of dopamine right now, or one of them is like, when you get a like on a post or a photo, you get a little dopamine hit, and then you check your emails, and when you scroll and you get a new one, you get that little dopamine hit. The long-lasting dopamine, the really powerful stuff, comes from these things like, movement, nature, real connection with people, the authentic way of living. And boundary setting is brain care. I think this is interesting because you want to protect your focus. You know now that you've got all this information coming in, you can possibly, take in all of it. So you want to protect your focus and energy by limiting distractions on things that you don't need to worry about. So you want to try and avoid emotional overload. So how are you feeling about what? And ask yourself, does this drain me or drive me? Does this drain me or drive me? Knowing again, like we've talked about in other sessions, that you have something called negativity bias, which means that you will give more weight and attention to the negative naturally because it's safety again, rather than the positive. So sometimes you have to actively choose the positive and blow that up to make that bigger. Makes sense? So you're not stuck with the brain you have. That's the most important thing. You can train it, you can change it, you can make it work for you to fit that idea of success that you really want. So, do you feel like you can start to rewire? What's the things that are going to help you, do you think? And just start to try and change your own thinking, even about the way that you think. Let yourself off the hook a little bit and say, I understand a lot of maybe my challenges are coming from my evolutionary biological self. I need to start working with myself in order to make change. So, your final invitation in the chat is one word to represent how you can take this kind of rewiring mindset from here, which might just be reflection or, take a pause or reevaluate. What is something that can represent something to you that represents a rewiring? Meditate, excellent. Prioritizing, integration, practice, books, understanding, re-energize, relax, awareness, reflective journaling, intention setting, adapting, believe, curiosity, manifesting, filtering, yes, believe, breathe, self-compassion, more mind wandering, less screen. I love that. See, yes. Your brain is this incredible thing. You kind of have to let it roam free and then be able to have control to pull it back and understand what to do next. So I want to bring this up on screen and you're going to get this. I'll lift it out of the presentation and you'll get that with your email. But this is the reading list of all of the things that, we've touched on in this session. So if you want to read more about anything in particular, then you will get that. You will get that. We always run out of time. But before we all go, I wanted to say just a personal thank you from me for signing up for this series. It's been a real absolute joy and privilege to be here and share this information with you. So I really, really appreciate your time. And thanks, of course, to Business Gateway for allowing us all to come together and facilitating this